Let's get one thing straight. Squirrels are not just adorable fur balls hopping through treetops with acorns in tow. Oh no! In the world of Beatrix Potter, squirrels have complex social lives, drama worthy of reality television, and yes, they even have prison breaks. If that sounds unexpected, you've clearly never met Timmy Tiptoes, the chubby-cheeked, slightly anxious squirrel at the heart of one of Potter's lesser-known but wonderfully eccentric tales. The tale of Timmy Tiptoes is not just about a squirrel trying to store nuts for the winter. It's a story about misunderstanding, bad luck, a bit of betrayal, accidental of course, and a very unusual bird with a nut-hoarding obsession. So fluff your tail, tuck a walnut behind your ear, and settle in for a story that's equal parts woodland whimsy and rodent ridiculousness. Timmy and Goody, the original power couple of the forest. Timmy Tiptoes and his wife, Goody Tiptoes, were the kind of woodland couple everyone admired. Industrious, polite, and incredibly dedicated to preparing for winter. They spent their days stashing nuts with a kind of urgency usually reserved for doomsday preppers. They were thorough, every nut polished, every hiding spot scouted. Because when you're a squirrel, winter isn't just cold, it's a test of survival, marriage, and memory. Where did we hide the third pile again? Their relationship was something of a forest model. Goody was smart, supportive, and didn't mind getting her paws dirty, while Timmy was kind, diligent, and had cheeks that could rival a chipmunk suitcase. Together, they worked tirelessly under the changing canopy of leaves, filling hollow trees with the forest's finest walnuts and hazelnuts. A case of mistaken identity. When nut hoarding goes wrong. But not everything in squirrel society is all nuts and roses. One day, as Timmy was doing what he did best, stuffing a hollow tree full of winter treats, he found himself under suspicion. The other squirrels, jittery and territorial, suddenly decided that Timmy was stealing their precious stockpiles. Imagine a quiet guy at the office being accused of swiping everyone's lunch from the fridge. Poor Timmy didn't stand a chance. With squirrel logic being what it is, i.e. slightly nutty, the group ganged up and shoved poor Timmy into a hollow tree and sealed him in with sticks and twigs. Yes, the furry woodland mob locked him up like a squirrel-sized escape room. Except no one planned to come back with clues. To be fair, Timmy didn't even try to protest. He was more confused than angry, and in typical British woodland fashion, far too polite to cause a scene. He simply blinked his big brown eyes, chewed a nut nervously, and accepted his fate. That is, until he realized he wasn't alone in the tree. Meet Chippy Hackey, roommate, prisoner, nut maniac. Inside the tree was Chippy Hackey, a chipmunk of, let's call it, intense energy. Chippy had also been accidentally trapped inside the tree and had long since cracked. Not just the nuts, but also mentally. He was twitchy, talkative, and had a hoarding problem that made squirrels look modest. Chippy had been stuffing the inside of the tree with so many nuts, it was turning into a woodland hoarder's cave. At first, Timmy tried to make the best of it. But have you ever shared a cramped space with someone who chews loudly, talks non-stop, and keeps asking if you touch their nuts? That's Chippy. Eventually, the two developed the strained politeness of distant roommates, grumbling under their breath and occasionally throwing nut shells at each other when tempers flared. Goody Tiptoes, forest wife turned detective. Meanwhile, Goody was having none of this nonsense. When Timmy didn't come home, she didn't wring her paws and wait around like a woodland damsel. She went full sleuth mode. She searched high and low, asking around, checking every hollow tree, and keeping her ears perked for any squirrel gossip. Goody was determined to find her husband, even if she had to dig up every nut stash from here to the next meadow. This was no fragile forest wife. This was a ride-or-die squirrel spouse who wasn't about to let her man get locked in a tree by a mob of nut-crazed rodents. The great squirrel escape. Timmy breaks free. Back in the tree, Chippy's hoarding finally had an upside. The nuts were piled so high and stuffed so tight that they eventually pushed against the walls of the hollow and burst open the makeshift door like a woodland jailbreak. Timmy tumbled out in a rush of shells and dust, blinking in the sunlight like a squirrel reborn. He was thin, shaken, and probably scarred for life, but he was free. And best of all, Goody was there. She nursed him back to health, scolded him lovingly, and when he was finally strong enough, they returned to the simple joy of gathering nuts. This time, perhaps, with a little less neighborhood drama. As for Chippy Hackey, he stayed in the tree, muttering to himself and continuing his nut empire in solitude, proving once again that some woodland creatures just prefer their own weird company. Final thoughts. The moral of the nuts. The tale of Timmy Tiptoes isn't just an odd little story about squirrels. It's a tale about perseverance, love, and the sometimes ridiculous consequences of jumping to conclusions. It's also a gentle nudge at society's tendency to scapegoat the innocent, and perhaps a warning to not hoard so many nuts that you start a forest-wide panic. Timmy is the classic every squirrel, kind, hardworking, and deeply misunderstood. Goody is the heroine we didn't expect, a squirrel with brains, bravery, and impeccable nut-gathering skills. And Chippy? He's the oddball side character who steals every scene he's in. The one you talk about long after the story ends. In her usual quiet genius, Beatrix Potter wraps these characters in a tale that is both absurd and tender. It teaches us to be cautious in our judgments, to value loyalty, and maybe to double-check your nut stash before accusing the neighbors. So the next time you see a squirrel with bulging cheeks and a twitchy tail, give it a little respect. It might just be on the tail end of a dramatic forest saga involving wrongful imprisonment, rodent therapy, and a reunion worth cheering for.